If people just rely on pure private insurance and everyone just escalates the cost, you end up in the situation of the US, basically, which is that people do deserve access to catastrophic health insurance coverage. That's a social good, okay? But you've munged this product to add all these other bells and whistles that then people think they need all these things. And then that leads to the increase.
Welcome to Brave. Learn from Southeast Asia's best tech leaders. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. No BS on success. I'm Jeremy Au, venture capitalist, serial founder, Harvard MBA, science fiction nerd, and dad of 2 daughters. Every week, we debate startup news, interview changemakers, answer listener questions, and share personal insights. Join our movement of over 40,000 members and get transcripts, resources, and community at www.bravesea.com. Stay well and stay brave. Evo Commerce sells premium affordable supplements and personal care electronics, operating in Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. Strive brand sells salon-grade quality products for home use and using direct-to-consumer channels through its online retail channels and physical shops. BBAC is the leader in hangover remedies in over 2,000 retail outlets across the region. Learn more at bbac.co and stryv.co.
Hey, Shiyan, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Hello from Jakarta.
Wow, hello from Singapore with my bit hair right now.
I mean, looking sharp as always.
So how's your Jakarta trip been going so far?
It's been a while since I've been here, and it's really nice to be back, to feel the energy. We hosted a Founder Friends event last night with AWS, and I think it was a little bit different in that we featured a founder who we had funded him as a B2B SaaS business, but he has pivoted into offline direct-to-consumer retail, which is a pretty 180-degree pivot. So I thought that was like an interesting story to share with this 100 founders who showed up last night. And it was an interesting thing because he runs an extreme value discounter.
Oh, Costco?
No, extreme value. So really cheap, right? Price is a big consideration, and it's called Lucky Bundle. And before the event started, I asked him, how many people in this audience do you think have been to a Lucky Bundle? So they have 8 stores in the Jakarta area. And he's like, I bet 0. And I'm like, really? And he's like, anybody who's in this room is in the top 20% of income in Indo. And we serve the bottom 80%. And so I took a poll, right? We were talking and I was like, okay, raise your hand. Has anybody here been to a Lucky Bundle? 1 person raised their hand. And so it was just a really interesting thing to see because we talk a lot about Indonesia as, oh my God, it's 300 million people, next great thing. But we don't really talk about the distribution of that income against that 300 million people. And so that was like a really, to me, like very stark illustration of that. And yeah, it was a really fun conversation, and it was great to just catch up with folks and learn what people were building.
Yeah, I think it's super fair. And I think that whenever somebody starts with a market slide saying Indonesia's 300 million people, I always watch for them to say the second thing, which is really important, which is that the GDP per capita is 10x lower than America. And that's a really key piece because a lot of people use the like market to market comparison in their head. Like, okay, America is also 300 million people. Indonesia is 300 million people. And I'm like, that's not apples to apples. There's the Indonesia growth story, there's the urbanization story, etc. But just having to realize that there is that income difference is so key. Otherwise, you end up building the wrong business, right? So people end up building B2B SaaS in Indonesia, and they're like, wait a moment, the cost of labor is so much cheaper in Indonesia. It's hard to digitize when the alternative opportunity cost is so low in terms of the slope. So it's just an interesting dynamic for folks.
Yeah, and it's not even just the per capita, right? Because per capita is still an average. I really do think the distribution, if we compared medians, the delta would be even starker. And yeah, so I thought that was it was interesting because when talking to, there's networking before and after, standard type of event setup, right? Everyone is, oh, Indonesians don't want to pay for anything. It's so hard to get them to pay. One guy is, oh yeah, I sold a company, but I'm starting my next company in the US. And I was like, why? And he was like, oh, Americans just have more money. Like they're more willing to pay. He's like, I'm moving to America.
Yeah.
So so it was an interesting thing, right? Which is sort of like, how do you build something that's right for the market that you're in? But I mean, I think there was a lot of interesting stuff that folks are working on. Like I met a guy building like marketing automation for WhatsApp, and it's priced in a way that works for the market, right?
Yeah.
You can't price it the way Klaviyo is priced for Shopify.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
I totally agree with you. And I think it's just been interesting because I've been like looking out for different HR software and doing a kind of like a bake-off speed run on SaaS. And it's interesting because Singapore has its own unique SaaS tools. I think if you are like in the US, I think one of the defaults for startups now is like Rippling. There's a unicorn trying to be all in one HR, but also IT and now the company management software. And in Singapore, I'm just dealing for the stuff. And I'm just like, first of all, the vendors are much smaller. That's one. Two is we have a very large productivity solutions grant, PSG grant, that is actually a big part of the criteria. So it's a government subsidy for certain approved vendors, which is interesting because now you have two tiers, right? You have people who are government approved for subsidies, which a lot of them honestly are pretty substandard and pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I think the productivity solutions grant is a huge distortion, and I don't actually think it's positive for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because basically what happens is people raise their prices and then they're like, look, but you're going to get it subsidized. So the net to you is lower, but then you create companies that are dependent on these grants and that are not actually globally competitive.
I don't have an issue with a grant. But I'm just saying, I think having pre-approved vendors, and a lot of the vendors are, from my perspective, only around because they are on the grant.
Yeah, that's the issue with the grant.
Okay, wait. So let's split those two words. So I think I don't have an issue with subsidizing productivity software in general, but the approach of certain vendors and many vendors being not market standard, below market standard, from my perspective, makes it pretty disappointing. And actually, one of my ideas I had, and I told a friend, was like, somebody should just do a roll-up of all these like substandard PSG SaaS software companies that is not very good, but just bundle them all together, which is also not great in the world scheme, but I'm just saying that to pick up opportunity from my perspective. So you heard it here first.
No, I'm telling you, the grant removes the incentive to be good. So therefore, it is distortive, and therefore that's my issue with the grant. Like, the benefit of a productivity solution should be productivity. Like, you should see it in your business. Your people can do more. You don't have to hire as much labor. That is the benefit, right? It isn't because you got a grant from the government.
I think the grant would be better designed if it was geared at digitization. Either you get better vendors or you allow perfect competition for the vendors, right? But I think the way it's currently designed is there's a lot of bad software there. But the good news is there are a few good software in it. I feel like there are more approvals more recently. And I think that if they're able to lower the walled garden to better players, then I think it'll be less distortionary. So that's my hand on heart feeling is I agree with you. When the vendors are bad, that walled garden, it's bad news, it's distortionary. But fingers crossed, we have some better solutions out there. But that list was like 80% trash.
But this is my point, right? Which is that either the software has a benefit or it doesn't. And if it has the benefit, you as a business should be willing to spend the money to get the benefit. And if you cannot see the benefit, either the company is not selling well or the software is trash, right? Like, those are the two possibilities. And if there is a great software that delivers benefits and you as a business owner still refuse to use it, then you should go out of business. You should be beaten by the other people who use the software to be more efficient to beat you. That's what the market is. So I just don't understand the point of the grant.
I mean, okay, like I said, there's a few good ones out of the list of, let's say a list of 10, there's 2 or 3 that are doable. And so my assumption is that even companies that are doing that internal bake-off will end up using a pretty good one. So I'm just saying that's one point of view. 2 is, what's interesting is that I do feel that the skills future vendors are more competitive with each other. I really do the skills future does feel more, I don't know what's the word. There's a lot more choice, but they also feel like there's a lot more differentiation as well. So anyway, I think it's a matter of how it's implemented.
As a taxpayer, are you happy that trash 80% are receiving a subsidy? Let's just frame it a different way.
My assumption right now is 80-20. I'll say that. My assumption is that only 20% companies are choosing those bad trash 80%. And I'm assuming
you hope I
hope so. I have no data. I hope they didn't choose it by alphabetical order. I mean, and also it's quite obvious, right? Because you click on all 10 of them and you just look at the website. And I'm not asking for the fanciest website, right? But you gotta look like you at least designed in the last 10 years. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, obviously, my hope is a Pareto principle, 80-20. So it's interesting. I will definitely provide more learnings on this. Productivity solutions ground versus skills future dynamic as well. Speaking about government and all the various dynamics, whether they're positive or against, we have the NTUC Income. So it's a cooperative that historically has sold insurance to, I'll say, millions of policies across Singapore. And it has a mandate of providing low-cost insurance that the market doesn't cover. And currently, I opened up the Straits Times yesterday, and there was like, I think they had bought up like maybe at least 8 to 10 pages of the Straits Times to release the minutes notifying that they are trying to sell to Allianz. And so I think they're trying to inform the whole Singapore, many of their policy members. They're like, hey, we're going to sell this, which is a privatization of this cooperative.
Yeah. I mean, I think insurance is a really interesting product, which is that if you think about the history of insurance, going back to the ships that were sailing to the New World and being insured against sinking, pirates, all that sort of stuff, the idea is to insure you against a catastrophic event. And I think for most Singaporeans and PRs, our national healthcare does that, but then people buy insurance as these integrated shield plans on top of it. But as we've seen in the US, if you create incentives for people to make more money, then prices go up. So to the extent that consumers don't necessarily feel the direct costs of their healthcare decisions and choices, that frees up doctors and medical providers to increase pricing and can possibly lead to overconsumption, which then negatively impacts everyone else in the system. I don't know. I'm sort of mixed on it in that on the one hand, Allianz seems to be making a pretty good offer, but on the other hand, the existence of like a socially benefited oriented insurer keeps price competitive in the market rather than everyone constantly trying to increase premiums and leading to more healthcare price increases. So I'm an income policyholder. There's a reason I chose income because I do feel they're more aligned with that to keep prices in line. And so I don't know. I think the claim Allianz is making is that they're still going to maintain the social benefit mission, but I just don't know how that jives with a private P&L imperative.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Alliance CEO comment was pretty interesting because he was basically saying, we're not here to buy top line, we're here to increase profitability. There's a summary of it. And, it's kind of I laugh with that because it ties to the other part, which is offering a higher price than the current asset value of the corporate. And I'm like, of course you can offer a better price because the current business is a cooperative where they're trying to make as little profit as possible, effectively a non-profit social enterprise historically. So of course it's quite easy to increase profitability because all you do is raise price and lower claim distribution. So you got better assets. So of course the privatization of this state-linked asset is obviously going to raise price, right? And be more profitable. So I think the CEO makes total sense. I think from an alliance perspective, it makes total sense to pick up this asset because you're getting policyholders. People are pretty sticky. People are not going to change the policy because of distribution. I think it's a great, and then obviously there's a lot of fixed costs for insurance as well, right? Distribution, IT system, etc. So you can also share that cost, economies of scale. So lots of good things to talk about it from a business transaction perspective. But I think where Reddit and the Singapore people were kind of like, wait a moment, when they raise price, either you squeeze it from the health insurance system or you squeeze it from the policyholder, right? And policyholders are more fragmented and have less power, bargaining power than the healthcare system. When you talk about squeezing more gains from the system, I don't think it's going to drive down costs per se. I just think that it's more likely balance of it to come from new shareholders, I would say. I mean, existing shareholders, the policies to be respected. So I don't think it impacts them.
I mean, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But I think it's just, I don't know. If you look at healthcare costs, it's crazy that in private, it can be like 3x the cost of public.
Yeah. But I don't think that's because NTUC Income exists.
No, it's not. But I think I'm making that point to say that if people just rely on pure private insurance and everyone just escalates the cost, you end up in the situation of the US, basically, which is that people do deserve access to catastrophic health insurance coverage. That's a social good, okay? But you've munged this product to add all these other bells and whistles that then people think they need all these things. And then that leads to the increase. I mean, I'll tell you, I went to a private clinic once. My wife's company, when she worked for a different company, they covered the kids and everything. And we went to a private pediatrician for the kids. And one visit came to $300. And I was like, what could possibly have cost $300? I was like, I want to see the itemized bill. And she was like, Shiyan, like, why do you care? Insurance is covering it. And I was like, no, that's not the right answer. I want to know what's in this thing. So I get the bill. Do you know that there was a line item where they charged us to weigh our son?
Must be. It's very backbreaking work. Has it paid?
And that's on top of the visit fee. There's a consultation fee. And then they like, no, this is a line item to weigh your kid. And I was like, this is not acceptable. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I said, we should never come back because this person isn't an honest dealer, right? Which is that you're already making a lot of profit, but just because the vast majority of your patients have health insurance and they don't care, and they don't care because they're not feeling it, because they're going to go claim it, then you add in all of these fees and you jack up your profit. So that's like my concern, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's super sweet, right? One is we're talking about healthcare systems and cost control, right? I think that's one piece. And of course, the second piece that we're talking about is the NTUC income.
No, but it's related. It's related, which is the healthcare system and cost controls. Like, you're all part of this system, which is if you raise premiums, people expect more out of it. Then people overconsume, and then you raise prices, and then premiums go up. So it's all interconnected, right? I'm not just some socialist.
Are you arguing that NTUC income should stay independent?
Yes, I am.
It feels like a done deal. That's the bad news. And I don't think I've really heard a very strong case about why it's happening other than the classic pieces, like they gave us a really good price. But the whole point of it is you get a really good price because you're no longer cooperative, you're no longer serving that mandate, so you can raise prices. I mean, I'm just saying, I just haven't really heard what is the public policy rationale for this. But I mean, it unlocks money now. I mean, you spend it now, maybe you get a nice asset value. So that's one thing.
But then what are you going to do with it?
Infrastructure, education. I'm just talking out loud, right? I'm just saying, I just haven't heard the...
But is money our problem? I don't think money is our problem.
Yeah, look, this is an interesting piece because we're actually making me in a position now where we're like defending Singapore-style capitalism, where we have state-linked insurance providers and key sectors. So it's interesting because I just don't know what the answer is. But again, I think the big one is there's no public policy argument for why this is happening.
Yeah.
I think there's a part that's really weird to me, I would think, right now. I don't even know if people really understand this enough anyway. As well, I don't even know if people are going to complain. I know the previous NTUC Income CEOs are against this, the predecessors, when they were so cooperative. But anyway, somebody's not exercising their veto, and I don't know why. So there must be a reason. And hopefully it's a good reason. I just haven't heard it yet.
Yeah. Above my pay grade.
Above my pay grade. I mean, it's like the opposite of Obamacare, right? Because Obamacare, everyone's fighting to have a public health benefits insurer, basically a nonprofit. Basically, people argue for NTUC income to exist in America.
No. I think that's different. Obamacare is different, right? Obamacare is basically like our public option, which is the base level. Okay, right. So that's what Obamacare is. But NTUC income is different. NTUC income is like a cooperative that offers insurance that is not like a private company, right? And it's like for the benefit of its members. And the benefit of its members is that they have affordable insurance, healthcare, car, whatever, all the variants of insurance that exist, right? And I think the existence of such a player balances the market out, right? It's sort of like the existence of public healthcare provides an option for people who don't want to go private. The existence of private provides an option for people who are dissatisfied with public, right? Like you need to have both options, basically. I think if it was purely private, that's not a good option. And if it was purely public, the NHS or whatever, I think that's also not a good option because, that limits competition and choice, right? But I feel like by removing, I guess the exercise is like, how much would it cost, or would there ever be another cooperative insurance to emerge again, provide that countervailing force that could compete?
No. I mean, I think it was a special moment to build cooperatives when most people didn't have an opportunity to buy insurance. There were not a lot of people that were serving the local Singapore market. And so you could rack up a large enough size of membership to do the risk pooling to lower the cost of insurance for everybody. I think the part of this is interesting is that this is a one-way decision. There isn't a way to unscramble this egg when the move is done, right? Because I don't think you can pick up another public health insurer option to create a big enough risk pool to compete with every single private insurer. That is not doable. So this is a one-way decision, I would say. Unless they create a public option, right? In that sense, right? So they create more government.
No, but there is a public option, right? So like you have MediShield, right? You can pay up for some of those things. But I think part of the Singapore model is that the government doesn't want to be in the business of providing everything. That's also not efficient or optimal. And so anyway, I don't know. We're all speculating.
My speculation here is maybe NTUC income finds itself stuck between both, right? So you have government policies that are good enough for whatever set of reason from their perspective. And then you have private insurers and maybe they feel like they're being squeezed in the middle. I'm speculating, I have no idea. I'm just saying that would be the NTUC income case, I think. But again, I don't understand what the government case is from a societal basis, which is another thing altogether. Speaking about governments, one of the things that we also want to briefly talk about was like the new news. It was a crazy 2 weeks since we took our last recording. We had Trump survived an assassination attempt. We had a president campaign on Biden. Biden withdrew from the race. Kamala came in. I felt like it was called like a wrestling match, right? People tag in, tag out, lots of twists and turns.
I'm frankly excited. I think Kamala is awesome. And she was the attorney general in California when I lived there, San Francisco district attorney. She's smart, she's competent, she's not a million years old. I think it's so interesting because the Trump campaign made this whole argument about how feeble and old Biden is, and now they can't make that same argument against her, right? She can turn around and make that same argument about Trump, who would be the oldest president ever if elected. I'm a little sad that this didn't happen earlier, right? There is not a lot of time until the first states go to the polls. So I think it's basically an all-out sprint to November. And I think it's pretty impressive that basically in the 48 hours after the decision was made, she's already raised over $100 million and sewn up enough delegates to get the nomination, right? Like that execution actually is pretty impressive. So I don't know. I feel like there's a total vibe shift and the energy is really gone from, oh, we need to vote for Biden to prevent a Trump presidency. I don't love it, but we should do it, to like, hey, we're actually excited about this candidate. Like this actually could be something good and different. So yeah, what do you think, Jeremy?
I mean, it's definitely shaped up and changed the betting markets. The prediction and betting markets have definitely swung towards the Kamala. Basically, I think after the debate, I think it got to like effectively Trump at 70 to 80% chance of winning. And now Trump is back to about 55 to 60% as of today. I think definitely a momentum shift as the odds are, as the market tries to price in Kamala Harris as a president. I think definitely what's interesting as well is that a lot of people in Asia started to recalibrate very quickly to be like, what does this mean for us? And we was just kind of debating, you and I, right, about what a Kamala Harris presidency might look like. I think Trump is priced in the sense that people knew that once he wanted a global 10% tariff, he wanted to slap in 60% tariffs on China. He wanted to basically extend the tax cuts on the individual businesses, as well as the individual tax cuts. He would basically increase the deficit. So lots of things that Trump had priced in. I think the market actually rallied to some extent based on that assumption as well, because a lot of these moves are pro-business profit, right? But I think people are still protecting what Kamala would do.
Yeah, I don't know if we have that much data on it, right? I mean, there's obviously to what extent will her policies reflect Joe Biden's or the Democratic Party's priorities more broadly. I mean, I think the one thing we can say is she's not random. She's not going to suddenly be like, oh, like tariff here, tariff there. I think all of the reports about her is that she's a really good listener. She actually considers many different points of view. So then the question is, to what extent can she address Democratic priorities, but also do things that make sense for the country, right? So I think she's actually more moderate than Joe Biden. I also think that maybe this is a bias. I feel like West Coast politicians actually are closer to Asia than East Coast politicians. Partially it's geography, partially it's exposure, because that's where the most number of Asian Americans is on the West Coast. I think Gavin Newsom is probably the only governor who went to China. So I don't know, right? I have no data on this really. I have a sense that maybe she's like slightly more moderate. I think the problem is basically that the one thing that unites both Republicans and Democrats is that they all think being tough on China is universally good for them, right? So then the question is, okay, tough on China in what way? And how does that actually translate into policy? And is it sort of communicated? Is it telegraphed? Or is it just one day you woke up and you're like, all right, we're doing this thing? And I think we're going to find out more. I think one of the things is that she's spending a lot of time talking to business leaders because a lot of them feel like they don't know her, right? They want to know what her economic policies are going to be. And I think she's been spending time with folks on Wall Street and other types of folks in the investment community to better hammer out an economic agenda. So it's something to keep an eye on, but we don't know. I don't know. I mean, at least she has some connection, right? She has an Indian mom. And we know that having an Asian mom is like 90% of the game to being Asian. So
Asian dads distant and have no impact on the kid. Great. Sorry, that's so funny. Great. I say this is the Asian dad. Yeah, we'll see what happens, and I think we'll just see what happens in the next few weeks. On that note, peace out and see you next time.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We would also appreciate you leaving a rating or review. Head over to www.bravesea.com for member content, resources, and community. Stay well and stay brave.